your mindset is everything. And that's why this topic is so important, because you are enough. And these times are hard. It's hard to pay rent. It's hard to find rent. It's hard to pay groceries. Wages aren't matching, have not been matching the cost of living. Things are really tipped toward an advantage to people who already have money and that sort of thing. Yes. You're not imagining that. And you're not deficient just because we're living in this period of time. And that's the hard thing and important thing to recognize.
Welcome to Two Coaches, One Life,
where we're on a mission to ignite confidence, health, and joy to make the most of this life.
My name is Lenore Shepherd, a board-certified health and wellness coach.
And I'm Judy Fine, a vocal performance and confidence coach. Today's topic is going to be thriving in challenging times, which I think we can all relate to. Do you have anything to announce before we jump into that, Lenore, or should we just jump in?
Not as yet. So yeah, why don't we just jump in?
Do it.
Yeah, okay. Just do it. Want to get us started?
Well, I don't know if you guys have noticed, but we're living in challenging times. Have you noticed, Lenore?
Just a little bit. Yes, certainly after January 20th, right? I think there's whatever, this is not political, right? But
and even before, it just seems like politics are out of our control. The weather is out of our control. Fires, wars, the price of groceries, everything seems out of our control. And so what can we control, I guess, is the question, and what we want to talk about today. And what we can't control is ourselves. And that's it. Yes. I know this takes on so many forms. It's our political life. It's people being horrible to other people, like Americans being horrible to other Americans, which to me is the most upsetting. But it's also like I currently have multiple people in my life who are on clear and obvious to me self-destructive paths. And I can't control that they're not ready to change that. And it's super, super hard. So in every way imaginable in our lives, we have to just keep coming back to ourselves. And what can I control? What can I change? How can I make my life better? And maybe my circle of people, all of our lives better, and contribute to that without getting caught up in the chaos and the negativity and the things we can't control and change.
I think that's all very well said. And especially looking at, the things that we can and can't control, what is so exterior to us versus what are the things that we can have a semblance of beyond control, but a sense of how we're going to respond to something, right? So yes. I think it's really important that you highlighted that. When I think of that as well, I keep coming back to what's my responsibility here? When I'm seeing A happen to this person, someone's acting a certain way, I come back to, and this is what I work a lot with my clients on, is not being in a reactive mode, but being in a responsive mode. And it's really hard because we get revved up and that adrenaline's going and that sense of cortisol. Wait a minute, what's happening? That sense of injustice, right? But part of it, I think, and this is also what you're talking about, Judy, is sort of slowing down that thinking. And it sort of comes back to what we talked about last time, is what wise mind. Let me slow this down. Let me come back to how I can respond in a way that's going to feel authentic, and that's not going to be in a reactive mode, to what's happening. And part of that, I feel like, is sort of a branching off of this is, and it's hard to do, but also being very choosy about what you're going to let into your energy field, right? Whether it's doing news fast, whether it's fasting from certain people, in your environment, really just sort of creating this place of respite as much as you're able to, so that you have that, as you talked about, that sense of landing back inside oneself. That feels like it's that respite.
Yes. And what you say about your response is so true, because I think for many years, I feel like a lot of people were pulling back from the chaos of our sort of political and societal world. But when someone says something you disagree with, or you feel maybe it's offensive to you or something like that, you don't have to tell them. You can, but you don't have to feel like you have to change their mind. Like, you're not Buffy vampire slayer and you got to kill all the vampires. You could just say, I disagree, and move on with your life and not let your energy be sucked away by a fight that it can't be won.
Mm,
It's
yes.
hard. And the same goes for when people have opinions about you. Let them, you know.
Yes. Yes. It gets to so many things that we can touch on here, but I'm a big Mel Robbins fan, and her new book, The Let Them Theory. At so
Yeah.
many is it right? It's not having that attachment. So much of this is not having an attachment to someone else's feelings about us, someone else's judgment about us, not looking for that external validation. And I think that's a lot of it too, of people are going to have their responses, and people are going to have, are going to engage in certain ways behaviorally, whatever else. But what is our responsibility? Come back to what am I going to own here, and versus what someone else is going to do. It's going to be
Mhm.
triggering. It's going to be hard at times, right? It's going
At
to be
first.
something that's, yeah, anxiety provoking, but then come back to, wait a minute, this is how they're doing it. What can I respond to? And I think also, to reinforce this, and also going into a bit of a cliche and a bit of something that's stereotyping, but as women, it's sort of been the agreeable role. Well, you sort of agree, don't make waves kind of thing,
Mm,
sort of stay in your zone of, what feels comfortable, right? As opposed to having, well, I'm going to have a response to this, but I don't have to, my response is my responsibility. How someone else is going to carry it, right?
right.
It's that response. I love this. What is responsibility? Able to respond. I can have a certain
Mm,
response to this, and whether someone's going to like it or not, that's up to them, right?
yes. That's a hard thing, especially when it's a new skill. Like you have to exercise the muscle to get better and more comfortable with that. In the realm of confidence coaching, the question I would ask is, who do you answer to?
Mm, that's a
When
good
you have
one.
genuine confidence, you answer to yourself and that's it. And when you're worried about how someone else feels about you, on some level you feel that you answer to them or they somehow define you. And you don't. I wonder, Lenore, do you have an example of you said that I can't remember exactly how you worded it. Instead of reacting, respond. Do you have an
Mhm.
example maybe of how you would tell a client to sort of shift that response from reacting to responding?
Yeah, thank you for that question. Because I'm trained in mindfulness-based stress reduction, I come back to the body and where we're holding it.
Mm,
And a lot of times what I'm doing is helping people sort of slow down that process of, okay, I feel something, I'm triggered and I want to say something. Take a breath, go into your
mm,
heart space. Okay, and notice, what am I feeling right now? I'm feeling anxious. I'm feeling annoyed. I'm feeling resentment. I'm feeling something, but slowing that down and remembering I have control over how I'm going to respond to something. And, an example is, and I have this a lot with my clients, is someone is having engaged in maybe a bit of an argument or disagreement with a spouse, and something comes up, some old, replay, which is typically what it is. It just comes out in a different form.
mhm.
Okay, I can feel my blood starting to rise. I can feel this. Slow it down. And what is my response here? Okay, and whether it's saying, "You know what? I need to walk away right now. I wanna sort of just regather myself," or if it's
Mm.
saying, "This feels like a familiar thing. Can we find a common ground?" Laughter is a wonderful way of saying, "Ah, here we are again. Here we are back into something
Yeah,
that's hard," but it can be a great way of sort of breaking that, that
totally. It's
ice
not
flow.
taking it too seriously.
No, because that's so much, and if I can just talk about relationships for a second,
Mhm.
of what, we look at when couples are fighting, how they are fighting. Is it hitting below the belt? You know,
Yeah.
what is happening here that, is sort of taking that sense of power away? And when both people can be in an engaged place of, "I'm feeling that you're not hearing me. What I'm saying is, but what you're hearing is something else." So if you can come together, and it's, again, I'm going to stress, this is not an easy thing to do, but the more you do it, the more that muscle gets played, is, oh, we're back to here again. This feels familiar.
Right,
How can we
right.
find a different way of responding? So does that sort of answer? I know I brought in a few different
Yeah.
things.
No, that's perfect. And bringing it back to the body is so important because we we think of our responses as being mental,
Mhm.
but our bodies learned how to respond to things. And so if you notice that like your spine tightens or your shoulders are up at your ears or something because something is happening, part of healing is recognizing what's going on. I keep hitting my microphone. Hopefully you don't hear that. Part of healing is recognizing like, oh, my body's like all tense, or oh, I'm doing that thing again. Like healing isn't about magically turning on a switch and then suddenly everything's better and I perform perfectly. It's learning to recognize those moments when your body tenses or your anger starts to rise and saying, oh wait, that's that thing that I do. And I kind of, it's exactly what you said, but I'm using sort of different words for
Yeah.
it. But
Yeah.
just recognizing that we're not just changing our thoughts, we're actually changing how our bodies respond to things.
Yes.
You can't really separate those.
Sorry, yeah, absolutely. Because that's the first place that we're going to go to is the body. And then we're sort of laying down a new neural network, a new different way of responding to something. As I'm calming the body, as I'm doing these things to relax, the brain's like, oh, I don't have to overproduce cortisol. Oh, there's a different way that I can be now. And again, it takes work. So for you, Judy, when you're working with folks and helping them really develop that muscle of confidence, what are some things that you come to as sort of some couple things in your toolbox that you use when you're helping folks with
Yeah.
that?
I mean, one I already mentioned, the who do you answer to
Of that.
is frequently an aha moment for people, because even if I feel like I have really big arms, so I don't wear a tank top, I'm making a choice where I feel like I answer to the people who will be looking at my arms, right?
Yeah.
If you answer only to yourself, then you're being almost by default being true to yourself and what
Yes.
you need and what you want. So who do you answer to is a great question to ask yourself. But the most important thing I think is what I started to touch on before. It's a journey, and you are going to mess it up sometimes. I mess it up sometimes. I'm sure occasionally, Lenore, as perfect as you are, I'm sure you mess it
Oh,
up sometimes.
perfect. I'm allergic to that word, but I'm far from perfect. Yeah. I'm learning from myself all the time, which is how I can help other people,
Totally. It's that concept of progress, not perfection.
Mhm.
So if you react with like a lot of anger at something you've been reacting to with anger for many years, and then in the middle of that anger, you're like, oh wait, that's that thing. That is progress, even though you first reacted with anger. And you have to look at it as each time I'm going to try to do a little better. I'm going to try to do a little better for myself. When whatever better means, but I'm going to try to react a little differently each time.
Mm.
And and that's where just stop being a jerk to yourself and stop taking yourself so seriously. Like there have been moments where my husband and I both advocate well for ourselves, I'll say. And sometimes that can create some, minor volume and sort of thing. And we'll
Sure.
literally have moments where we'll just stop and realize what's going on and just laugh.
That's great.
It is great. I've earned all of my laugh lines.
You actually have a perfect complexion. I can't see any left lines, but I trust you that they're
StreamYard
there.
might be touching up my appearance. I don't know. Yeah,
That's
I'll take
right.
it.
And that I imagine that must help diffuse a lot of,
Totally.
pent-up resentment and things. What happens next, if I may ask, once you've sort of broken that
It
barrier?
it does. It releases, the pressure, and then it's
Mhm.
just easier to talk, and it's just easier to I don't know, it just diffuses everything. It just diffuses everything. But we're on the same page with that, and we've come to the same
Mm.
page over time. So it's harder to do that. If you start laughing and your partner's still like, "Wah!" It won't quite have the same effect maybe, but
But that's an important point because when, and this is something I also talk with folks about. If you're matching someone else's level of aggression or level of irritability or something else, you're both vibrating at that energetic level where it's really going to be hard to come down. But when you can come
mm,
down a notch and say, oh, I can see this is where they are. I can make a choice to go here, or I still want to stay in my power, but what can I
yeah,
do that's going to be a way that I can help both diffuse, but for us both to be in that same rational place where we're not using our sort of reptilian brain to respond,
right,
but we're back in our emotional center to respond.
right. Yeah,
So
that's excellent.
that can
Excellent
make a big
point.
difference. So I'm curious, with do you find that when you're working with people, and I'm sure you do, and they may not even be aware of how much it's impacting, but when we're talking about thriving in difficult times, with you working with clients, is there confidence, do you feel like, and their performance also impacted by what's happening externally so that they start to internalize that? And if so, how do you help them with that?
Yeah, I mean, the thing that's out of your control from the perspective of a performer is how the audience feels about you.
Yeah.
And if you're really attached to that, you're not going to be your best self as a performer. So
Mm,
when I talk about confidence, there are two kinds. I refer to it as like lowercase c and uppercase C confidence. And lowercase c confidence is confidence in your skills or your
yeah.
knowledge or maybe your attributes. And uppercase C confidence is just confidence in who you are, in your right
Mm,
to exist and to be imperfect and to say what you need when it disappoints others. All those things is just confidence, genuine confidence in who you are. And sometimes people lack the uppercase C confidence in the performance realm, in lots of realms, but performance particularly. And so their solution is to work on their vocal exercises, which does
yes.
not address capital C confidence. So that separation happens. And or that separation is important. And when times feel tumultuous and uncertain and the job feels like a constant wait and groceries are expensive or whatever, the overall mindset is not one of I'm doing great in the world. It undermines your sense of sort of being enough, and
Mm,
that can just tip the scales. Even though those things seem unrelated, your mindset is everything. And
yeah.
that's why this topic is so important, because you are enough. And these times are hard. It's hard to pay rent. It's hard to find rent. It's
Yeah.
hard to pay groceries. Wages aren't matching, have not been matching the cost of living. Um, Things are really tipped toward an advantage to people who already have money and that sort of thing. You're
Yes.
not imagining that. And you're not deficient just because we're living in this period of time. And that's the
Mm.
hard thing and important thing to recognize.
That's such a beautiful message, and I'm so glad that you put it, in those words, because we are so impacted by what's happening outside of us, and that, well, if this is out of control, everything starts to sort of feel in that tumble, right, in that tumult of what's happening. And I love the differentiation between the capital C and the small c and the big C. What it reminds me of, on a different note, is when I also, so I have two practices as a therapist and one as a health coach when I'm working with folks. And I also bring this in with health coaching, but who have a history of trauma. And we've all
Mhm.
had traumatic things happen to us. You can't be in this world without it, but some more so, right? The sort of the small t and sort of the bigger T. And how is that
Right.
impacting our ability to be in the world and be in my body and to just be someone that
Yeah.
wants to be in this productive, healthy state, right? So those, I feel like, have a lot in common, that sense of confidence, where that comes from, and how is our trauma shaping us and allowing us to be in this world and impacting us.
So important. So, so important. Your specialty is helping people improve their lives and their mindsets and their sense of happiness through improving gut health. How do you think the challenging times affects that?
Yes, that's really important. Stress is such a big, it's something
Mhm.
that people talk about. How do I improve my stress resilience and how do I improve my recovery from stress? But it's really hard if you're eating well and you're exercising, and you've got a good relationship pretty much with different people in your life, your intimate ones, maybe your kids, friendships. But if that anxiety around finances
Mhm.
and around what's happening politically and what's happening geopolitically, what's happening around the world, you can be doing all these things. But if your cortisol level is continuing to rise and you're not able to find a place that feels like a respite for you, and these things start to build up, it's going to be very hard to stay in that sort of what we want to call that sort of that healthy sort of place that you want to
Yeah.
stay. The body's always looking for that state of homeostasis, right? It's continually looking for that. And if we're sort of up here, it impacts our sleep and impacts our ability just to feel safe, right? I think safety is a big part of it. So part of what I do is what are the things that we can start to build up for you so that you can find that respite? Things are happening that feel scary. I'm not able to maybe meet my rent all the time, but what are some things that I can do that I know I have a sense of control over? And really, coming back to that again is really important. 80% of autoimmune diseases are caused by stress. It's stress, among other things. And that's a really high number. And it puts, I feel cautious when I say this, but it puts a little bit of the responsibility back on us. How am I going to respond to what's happening? Because let's face it, the news is meant to inspire fear, right? There's a lot of fear-driven things that are happening. So, things like a news fast, things that being very careful what I'm going to bring into my energetic environment, right? And coming back to how can I feel that sense of safety in my body again, and working on that. And then working on short-term solutions. What are some things that we can start to do to build into your stress resilience with finances or whatever else it is? Is that?
Yeah, that's a really important addition, because and all this time we're talking about the stress of money, but we haven't really talked about finances yet. And it really, one of the things you can control is actually making a budget. And this is so unappealing to so many people. But I learned I chose to be a person. Well, when I was young, I thought I either chose happiness or money. That was my mindset issue at that time. And I chose happiness. And, I worked enough to pay my bills and not need help, and then support my music habit. And I really don't regret it at all. But I had to learn that I can both strive for financial security and do what my heart wants to do. But a huge freeing element of that journey was when I started doing budgets. I was afraid to look at it initially. I didn't want to pay attention to it. But the thing is, when you make a budget, it frees you, because you see what you can spend safely, like what's extra. And you can also see if I want to be comfortable and not have constant cortisol, rising cortisol levels, I could just maybe pick up 2 more hours of work, or change something here, or stop paying for, I don't need to stream videos. I'll just watch YouTube or whatever it is. And you can take control of that and feel proud of yourself and reduce your stress. Such finances are like an often forgotten piece of health, I think.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
You cannot separate it.
I love your examples, and that's wonderful, of going through and then having that budget so you can actually see. And that's why when I'm, working with folks, I do separate out, all the different things that they're looking at, with, relationships, connection with others, obviously nutrition, dietary intake, fitness and movement, joy, right? Where are you finding joy? Where are you creating it for yourself? And also finances. How much is that also weighing on you? Because everything, we're complex, messy beings. That's just who we are. We're these also wonderful, beings that have, so much potential to create so much in this world. But there's everything that's going to, impinge on who we are and how we show up in the world. So I like to sort of look at everything, as much as possible. So, if you could look at, as we're sort of, wrapping this up, you gave some great examples, for people of looking at, who you answering to, what voice is that, and how can I start to shift that so that what's happening out here is not going to, I can have a sense of control how much it's going to impact me. So there's something else you want to just sort of, add as a takeaway for folks?
Yeah. I mean, we're going to talk about this more in the next episode, about the power of pursuing a dream, but just, we tend to put off this fun thing that my heart wants to do. I can't do it yet because it's just not a good time and things are stressful. And it's really important to have creative moments, and it doesn't have to be something you spend a lot of money on, but just once in a while getting lost in something that your heart enjoys, where you're going to forget about finances and rent and whatever else, your boss, whatever else brings you down. It's really important to have moments of, like you said, what'd you call it? A news fast, which is a great phrase.
No, I didn't make it up.
I'm still giving you credit for saying it. but also just a thought fast, something
Yeah,
that
that's
absorbs
great.
you, whether it's
Mm.
walking in nature or painting or just something that absorbs your brain.
That's beautiful, and I will echo that if I may. Someone that I love is Martha Beck, who's an incredible. She's beyond a coach. She's a wisdom carrier, wisdom bearer. She's written a lot of best-selling books, and her newest one is on anxiety. And one of the messages is creativity is one of the best ways to help manage anxiety. When we're anxious, it sort of shuts down creativity, right? This is her
Yeah.
messaging to it. So what you're saying is, can you find a respite? Can you find a place where you can go out in nature, maybe and hug a tree? Can you draw something? Can you do some writing? Because what you're doing is you're helping the brain say, oh, you're going out of the left brain and into the sensory right hemisphere, where that wants to create, that wants to look at things, that wants to look at nature and be part of things. So by doing that, you're sort of shutting that down, whatever it is, whether it's knitting, whether it's oil painting, whether it's playing an instrument, whether it's writing something, right?
Yeah.
Finding something
Okay.
that's going to be a way of bringing that down so you can come back into your body again.
Yeah, and I'll just add an addendum to that. Don't wait to feel inspired,
Yes.
because when you're stressed, you won't. Sit
Yes.
down and sort of invite inspiration to come, and it will.
I love that. That's
Mm.
a beautiful message. Yes.
Nice, Lenore. I love talking to you about these things. I love having
I
your
do too.
perspective. I feel like,
Thank you, and you as well. And I feel like this has been a fruitful one. And it's such a big topic that one can keep going on in, but I think hitting some good points, and then hearing from people,
yeah,
what's
we'd love to
helpful.
hear what you think, what stories you have, what did we get right, what did we forget, what did we miss?
Yes.
Whatever you want, would love to hear from you. Do you want to tell us what thing of joy you're going to be doing this week?
What thing of joy will I be doing this week? Let's see. I will be having new pictures, a new picture taken. So that's something fun. Getting the hair right, and just yeah, having a picture taken with a photographer. So that's my fun thing,
Fun.
because it's something I've been meaning to do. And just being out in nature. So how about you, Judy?
Yes. I have no plans to get my hair right. That's not on the horizon. That hair is my jam. Don't mess with it.
You have lovely hair. It's curly hair that always I'm trying to figure out how do I wear it. So
Straight-haired women always want curly hair. Curly-haired
oh, and we
women
always
always
want
want
the
straight
straight
hair.
hair. That's just the way it is.
Yes.
It's what we're talking about, right? Whose voice is this? This is just I want what I don't have. I have to be happy with what I do
Exactly.
have.
Greener grass. Exactly. Joy, the most exciting thing in my life right now is this show. I was so looking forward to recording today, and
Me too.
I'm looking forward to sharing it. So I feel like that's where my head is, and I can't find another place to take that question. So my
Well,
joy this
good.
week is this show.
And you're sharing your joy with the world. So thank you. And thank you
Trying
for
to,
letting me
yes.
be a part of this too.
Thank you for doing this with me. So, and you all can help us spread the joy by commenting, liking, and telling your friends about us. And go to twocoachesonelife.com and join our email list. Next time,
Sounds
bye.
good. Bye bye.